Have you ever wanted to do a hard activity for a long period of time? Well, if you've been able to do this, congratulations, you can walk away and go home. Now, for the rest of us who realistically and sincerely said no, I have a couple more questions for you. Do you want to be happier than you are right now? Do you want to be more confident? I want you to please raise your hands if you do not want these things. We can see no one, right? And this talk is going to be targeting those of you who didn't raise their hands. But also, for the ones who did, let's see if I can convince you to try out calisthenics. We can see most people, me included, want to do these hard activities that can report as a benefit. Then why don't we do these activities? Well, it usually looks hard, so we just don't try. I'm not here to accuse you of anything. I'm not here to give a motivational speech. I'm only here to tell you about my experience, how calisthenics helped me, and how it can help you too. So let's get started. I'm Carlos, and I will be talking to you about calisthenics. What is calisthenics? It is the performance of physical exercise with your own body weight. For example, push-ups, pull-ups, even the handstand, or even the handstand push-up. I was supposed to fail that thing. These skills usually require pushing or pulling strength. Now, let's move on to the following part of the talk, which is why did I start? Why I started doing this. There are several reasons why someone can decide to start training. It might be because you're heartbroken, maybe therapy is too expensive. In my case, it was much simpler and sillier. You know, this is a stereotype that fat guys have strength by default, and skinny guys have abs by default. I thought I was in the latter case, but one day I looked at a photo of mine and I realized I didn't have any. So I just decided to start training. It sounds silly, and it is, but it still is a reason to train. The second reason why I was able to keep training is Now let's move on to how did I do this? How did I achieve this? The first thing I did to do this is I set realistic goals. What I mean by this is you can't expect to train hard 4 hours each day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's not realistic. Some people might be able to do it, but not normal people like me and probably you. What we can do is we can decide to do 30 push-ups. If that's too hard, you can do 30 split it into 2 sets of 15. And if that is still too hard, you can bend your knees to make it easier. You get my point. You can take a simple exercise and adjust it to your level. Now, the second reason I was able to do this and how I was able to do this is I had a certain amount of drive. I had a reason, a motive, a desire. It was silly, in my case, I wanted to have abs, but it was a reason, and that's what you need. For example, maybe you just want to, when you're playing with your son, you might want to be able to lift him without struggle. Maybe you just want to be able to jump over your house's fence because otherwise you lose the bus. And even if you don't find a reason to do it, I would still encourage you, every single one of you, to do it. The only case in which I would tell you not to do it is if you have a physical impediment or a medical condition that prevents you from doing this. If it's bad for you, do not do it, and don't worry. But I don't mean that you should always do this. In most cases, you should, but this doesn't have to be for you. Now, let's move on to the following part. The reasons that you might be thinking of that are telling you not to do it. I'm going to call them excuses. They sound reasonable, but in reality, that's what they are. Because this is the funny thing with calisthenics. It just kills all those excuses. Let's take a closer look at some examples. You might be thinking that you don't have the time, that you don't have the money, or the gym or the equipment, or that you don't have the discipline nor the knowledge. Let's break these one by one. If you're thinking that you don't have the money, you're right, or at least you don't want to spend it. But in reality, you don't need it. In order to do a complete calisthenics routine, you only need yourself and the floor. Well, and gravity, of course. The second excuse that you might be thinking is that you don't have the knowledge. And to be honest, I still don't have it, and I've been doing this for quite some time now. But in reality, you don't need to know. You're just performing simple exercises. You don't need to know. You only need to listen to someone that does know. And that, my friends, is pretty easy nowadays. Now, another excuse that you might be coming up with is that you don't have the time. This is the most common reason why people think they shouldn't train. And you're probably right. You don't want to spend 4 hours of your day trying out calisthenics or whatever you want. You don't want, sorry. Now, that's completely normal. But how much time do you think doing 30 push-ups take? 4 hours? No, it just takes 2 minutes. I want you to please raise your hand if you don't have 2 minutes of your life to try out something new. We can see almost no one, right? And this relates to the following topic, which is that you might be thinking that you don't have the discipline. And that, again, is probably true. All these reasons are true, but they just don't apply to calisthenics. Why is this? Because in order to do an easy and simple calisthenics routine that only takes 2 minutes, and of course you can do whenever you want in the day, just after you wake up or just before you go to bed or anywhere in between, it doesn't matter. You don't actually need discipline to do it. You just need to remember of doing it. And a 2 minutes routine can mean a lot. A study conducted by Harvard of elders above 60 years old did 8 simple exercises, training 6 times per month for 10 straight months. The results were clear and noticeable. Another study conducted by the magazine Physiology and Behavior showed how a group of both men and women did simple exercises for 10 weeks. They improved 7 out of 9 physical parameters. But this goes way beyond the physical. Let me show you this with an example. This is my friend Lucas. He used to play too much League of Legends. And this is Lucas after quitting League of Legends and 5 months of calisthenics, but that's secondary. But I want to focus more on his attitude rather than in his physique. I think the physical difference is pretty obvious, right? But let's take a closer look at his attitude. Even though we can't see his face, there's a different pose in the first, comparing the first and the second photos. In the first photo, we can see he's not even looking at what he has in front of him. This is his reflection, his image. In the second images, we can see he's in both images looking at the mirror. But why is this? He has made an improvement and has realized that he has the power to keep doing that improvement. And that gives him a boost of confidence. He wants to keep seeing these results that you see here. You can see he's even posing a bit to look better. And this boost of confidence also translates to other areas of your life, such as your studies, your social life or skills, and some even say it can help you in your romantic life. I am yet to discover that. As a conclusion, I'm really hoping that this talk has gotten to you and that you've realized that every single one of you have the power of completely changing your lives with calisthenics. As Aristotle once said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. I encourage you here and today to embrace excellence with calisthenics for the first time in your lives. Thank you for listening.